It's 4 o'clock on a Monday, and you know what that means. Yes, sirree. It's time for another exciting episode of Taxi TV Live. And welcome, guests. Thank you, band. Thank you, fake audience. Let me pop open the chat room. There you guys are. Hello, everybody in the chat room. I want to say at the top of this episode that I think it's 2 episodes ago, people are saying, I keep getting commercials. They interrupt all the time. After today's episode, go check out, whatever browser you're using, they have pop-up blockers for those browsers, and you can install them. They're easy to put on, and that will prevent the ads, and things won't get messed up during the show. So, let's see. I think I saw Scott Hansen serving a vegetarian dinner tonight at the restaurant. Is that true, Scott? I'm not going to scroll back to find out. I'm sure he'll chime in. But anyway, glad to have you guys here. This is going to be a really productive episode. I guess it was a week or 2 ago, I spent a weekend obsessing about a lot of instrumental cues that I was hearing in TV shows. And yeah, we talk a lot about, tension cues, orchestral cues, twangy southern cues that get used on, gator shows. Comedic cues. What do they call the cues where somebody's sneaking around looking in the window? All that kind of stuff. But the one thing that I don't think we've ever talked about, I could be wrong, I'm pretty sure I'm not, is doing instrumental cues that sound like cool contemporary indie bands or artists. Not so much the singer-songwritery stuff, but, the band-sounding stuff. And I was putting together a playlist. I think almost everything on the playlist that I'm going to use today I've used on other shows, but I've never, put together this list. I grabbed them from a few different places. And so I want us to listen to these songs and listen to how you could take sections of the songs and make them instrumental cues. Now remember, on instrumental cues for production music libraries, generally speaking, they've only got a really short intro, maybe no intro at all. Sometimes cues, I've noticed cues that they start out with on the main body, like in the A section of, what is it? Bizarre Foods with Andrew Zimmern. That a lot of times they lead in with just a drum fill and then boom, right into the A section. Now the A section, very often for instrumental cues, whoops, I'm a little out of frame. The A section is very often what we would normally think of as a chorus, the hookier part of a song. And they take that and use that hooky part as the A section, and it's not infrequent that the A section is the only section. That the entire cue is a repetition of that A section, starting out maybe a little stripped down and then building up, and then boom, a quick rest, and then back down to a stripped down thing, and then they build it back up again, they bring it up to some sort of dynamic crescendo, and then end on a buttoned ending, or what some people call a stinger, or a stinger end. But as I was listening to these songs, I'm going, wow, if you created a bunch of cues that reflect the vibe, the energy, the style that the bands we're going to listen to today have, you would be very much in demand, and I bet a lot of libraries would love to have those cues and that they would get a lot of placements. Why do people like contemporary? Because it's what's happening now. It's what's happening on the charts. It's what's happening on radio. It's what people listen to. Shows don't want to put in a bunch of dated sounding cues that date the show, so they want contemporary stuff. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to listen to bands like Edward Sharpe and the Magnetic Zeros, Arcade Fire, Neon Trees, Donora, Imagine Dragons, Death Cab, blah, blah, blah. So, without any further ado, let's start listening. Yeah, Mojo says they already have vintage in their catalog. That's true. We've spoken about that before in regard to orchestral stuff. They have a lot of orchestral stuff, and a couple of years ago we were begging them, run more listings for orchestral. Our members want to submit it. And the libraries would respond by saying, we already have a bunch of orchestral. Then they started realizing that the orchestral they had sounded like 1980 or 1990 something orchestral, maybe even older, maybe even 60s or 70s. And they needed hipper, more contemporary orchestral stuff. The way that people make it sound hipper and more contemporary, maybe different melodies, different rhythms, and the addition very often of electronic instruments or maybe some rock elements as well into what we call in the industry a hybrid. So, Gem Music says, "Can we get better quality music playback? Mic in the room sounds like crap." I'm well aware of that. The reason that we don't, I would have to, the way Ustream is set up, I would have to load every one of the cues into Ustream in advance, and they take a lot of memory, and it tends to bounce us off air. And this way, by me playing it in the room, I can also talk over it, which I can't if I'm playing the stuff through the computer. And also there's a feedback issue. If I've got the mic live and the song is live coming through the speakers, then my voice is going to feed through the speakers. And I refuse to wear headphones and look like a radio guy doing a show. So that's why we do what we do. We play it through the speakers. And generally speaking, we're not dealing so much with the quality of the audio as we are the structure and the type of song and the lyrics. And I know that on occasion we do, and I apologize for that, but we've never been able to come up with a really great solution. Even if we were to use a mixer and combine the output of the music and the microphone, we're still going to have the feedback issue. And unfortunately, Ustream, and I'm sure other programs like Ustream, the minute that it feeds back, it kills the microphone, auto kills it, and then you have to scramble and unkill it every time. So there you go. Let's see, quick check of the chat to see if anybody else. Waddy JP says, why not put the mic into a mixer and then put the line into the mixer from the music? That's why, is because the whole yeah, I mean, I'm well aware of Mackie consoles, but we still have the feedback issue, and unfortunately, you get the tiniest little bit of feedback on Ustream, and it just kills it. So, okay. Anyway, here we go. First thing we're going to listen to is a song called Home by Edward Sharpe and the Magnetic Zeros. I'm sure that you've all heard them. And just listen to this song and listen to the different parts and think about how you could take parts like that. I'm not saying in any way, shape, or form that you should rip these guys off or do sound-alikes, but what is the vibe of what they're doing? What's the attitude, the emotion, the tempo, the instrumentation? Those are the kinds of things that I want you to look at. So here we go. Ooh, using a second monitor today, so if you see me turning that way, it's because I'm using an external monitor. Here we go. Forget the lyrics, think instrumental. Okay, I'm pausing it right there. What's going on? A bass, kind of a whoompy kick drum, forget the vocals. Could have the whistles for a track, for a library track. Sometimes they even talk about vocals that aren't actual like lyric vocals, but the huh, huh. So all this stuff that we've heard so far without the vocals, other than those huh vocals, um, this could be a cue, kind of mid to up tempo. Um, could work on its own. The chorus is even better, but this could be a cue.
Every pumpkin pie, chocolate candy, Jesus Christ, there ain't nothing please me more than you. Oh, let me go home. Home is wherever I'm with you. Oh, let me go home. Home is wherever I'm with you.
That could be a cue. That was certainly an easy edit point. I hear a piano in there somewhere. Right, it is basically the same thing over and over, and very simple. I'd probably call this indie rock. There's an acoustic guitar.
Well, you fell on the concrete and nearly broke your ass and you were bleeding all over the place and I rushed you off to the hospital.
I don't think the lyrics would work that well for TV.
I told you about that, right? While you were sitting in the back seat smoking a cigarette you thought was going to be your last, I was falling deeply in love with you. And I never told you till just now.
Hear how it's bigger and more anthemic here? Bigger, more anthemic. Now, it's mostly because of the vocals, but there's definitely more instrumentation. All right, so see what I mean? fairly simple. It's all about the layers. And who was it? Somebody said taxi screeners would reject this and rip you a new one or something. I don't think so. I don't think so at all. Especially if the listing were for, indie folk, indie rock, band sounding instrumentals for film and TV. I believe that they would like it. Okay, so there you go. Really good example of what contemporary sounds like, and I just personally don't believe that there are enough cues being made in the general vibe of what we're going to listen to today. So without any further ado, let's listen to Wake Up by Arcade Fire. That's almost a cue right there. Yeah, the beginning is pretty a la Black Keys. This is Arcade Fire. The song is Wake Up. Sorry to keep stopping and starting, but this is supposed to be educational, so I want to inject a little education. Once again, remember, you could do two versions of this. You could do an instrumental version of it, and you could do a version that's got the big background unisons, and I bet you that libraries would love to have this.
Turn the summer
Okay, going into the Motown thing in the middle of the song, not a good idea for a cue. It's like two different cues, so I'd stay away from that. But you get the idea. I mean, this one's more of a wall of sound, had tons of guitar layers in there. It did have lots of reverb, and yes, the reverb did sound a lot like the Edward Sharpe reverb. And I think that's part of the indie sound. And who knows? You know, maybe 2 years from now, that reverb will be like, ugh, that reverb is like, you know, just so over the top. But again, libraries want really contemporary stuff. So that's what we're trying to figure out today. Are there elements? I'm not saying that you should copy these guys. I'm not saying you should look at their song structure. I'm saying what makes this sound cool, contemporary, hip, and indie, okay? Those are the things. And then stick with primarily an A section. Sometimes it could be an A and a B section. Um, but they don't want stuff, certainly in the instrumental cue market, that is like an A, B, first chorus, bridge chorus, and out format. That doesn't really work in the cue world. They want something that stays on a central theme and adds layers to add interest, keep it moving forward. Sometimes you'll see the word propulsive used. And they're not going to use the whole thing. They're going to take a section. It may be that the stripped down beginning section works better for the emotion in the scene that they need it for. It may be that the bigger, fuller thing is what they need. It may be that the video editor takes 2 bars or 4 bars of the stripped down thing and then cuts to the bigger thing because he knows something bigger is going to happen, and then boom, to a hard ending, a buttoned ending, a stinger ending, whatever you want to call it. In the end, they do edit music. That's why you want to give them easy, obvious edit points that they can feel and that they can see on their waveform. Would you use the guitar as the melody? You could, yeah, absolutely. I'll tell you what, that actually, Catherine, that brings up a really good point. If you were to just take a song with a vocal and take the vocal out, hit the mute button, you would in fact have an instrumental. But if it's verse, chorus, bridge, chorus, and out, a traditional song form, and you take the vocal out, it's going to sound like a rhythm track. It's not going to sound like an instrumental cue. So when you're just working with one section, just an A section, and more often than not the A section is chorus-like in nature, you may not need a melody that is as intricate or does the same thing that the melody in a lead vocal would do. Excuse me. It may be that the rhythm track itself is a little busier, but the melodic thing that carries it and makes it feel a little richer might be more legato, might be more whole notey. Okay, so there you go. All right, let's listen. I can't remember. This one is a song called Holiday from Pink Mountaintops. I know there were one or two that I was having second thoughts about including, and I think this may be one of them. If it is, I'll kill it. So this is Holiday by Pink Mountaintops. Sorry, Bob and Catherine. Yes, I got confused. All right, I remember what I liked about this. The unison vocals. Well, first of all, it's very loose, kind of ragtag, kind of Dylan-esque. Notice how it's not perfectly slick. But it's got that cool, hip, indie, contemporary thing going on. You could take what the lead vocals are doing in unisons and just do la la la's in unisons, and it would have a pretty similar effect and be a cue. So listen with that in mind.
Of those who've seen the backs of the cowards have seen how fast they can run. Bullet holes through the walls of the summer. Goddamn, what have we done?
A little harmonica in there.
All wicked ways collapse, broken slain, or suffocate, rattling in their chains.
Hear that? Wow, wow, wow.
Scenes out the gate to the Milky Way. Reach for the stars with your brightest gaze. Never let the bastards bite back.
Somebody just asked, are la-las allowed for instrumentals? I would think if you were doing this kind of track and you had la-las, they would love it. Have a version without la-las ready to go. They may get back to you and say, we love this track, but we can't use it with the la-las. Maybe, you know, if you get one accepted by the library, say, by the way, I've got a version with la-las. But they just can't get enough of cool contemporary stuff. And this unison thing is just out of hand. Who knows? Maybe 6 months or a year, 2 years down the road, it won't be cool anymore. I don't know, but right now it's cool. Somebody else, I think Mojo's right. I was trying to hear what that was. Sounds like a pump organ in there. All right. Yeah, stems. There you go, Mary Band. Give him a version with stems. Or give him the stems. All right. I didn't personally love that one, but it did make that point. Now let's listen to Everybody Talks by Neon Trees.
Hey, baby, won't
Okay, sorry to stop it so quick. I was a little fast on the trigger there. Forget that intro. Forget the intro. Just think about starting it. I'm going to take it back to the top at the Hey Baby. And obviously without vocals.
Hey, baby, won't you look my way? I can be your new addiction. Hey, baby, what you gotta say? All you're giving me is fiction. I'm a sorry sucker, and this happens all the time. I find out that everybody talks, everybody talks, everybody talks. It started with the whisper, and now it's when I kissed her.
10 chords.
Make me itchy. Oh my shit. Everybody talks too much. It started with a whisper, and now it's when I kissed her.
So what if you did the vocal melody line? Again, I'm not saying rip off the song, copy it, but do something, you know, in the textural ballpark of it. And it doesn't have a vocal. Could be a harmonica, although harmonicas do tend to distract from the rest of the track. maybe do something cool. Take a banjo, run it through a little tiny Fender amp, and and just distort the crap out of a banjo doing a melody part. I don't know. Get inventive, but you can see how if you just took the vocal out of this and took the chord changes, took the basic rhythm track, it's a cue. Okay, see, right now it went back down to being stripped down for the verse. I would come right in on the downbeat of this one, maybe even do a boom, boom, come into the verse part, have that be fairly stripped down, maybe a little more acoustic guitar centric, and then stay on the same chord changes, the same rhythmic pattern, and bring in the electric guitars, build it up, make it bigger, make it more anthemic. And then, of course, easy edit point, little eighth note rest maybe, and bring it back down again. Just that lick, that do 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 do. I can't sing worth a damn, but just that repetitive lick, that could be the basis for a cue. I think it was Ad Hitman said yeah, it was him. Should the track start small and build, or start full and then? It could go either way, whatever works. There is no absolute prescription that you have to follow every time. It depends on what you're doing. I would say, if I had to guess, 65-70% start a little smaller and then get bigger. But sometimes for the right kind of cue, certainly if you're doing a like a punk rock thing, come in strong, be big, be bold. All right, let's move on to the song Animal, also by Neon Trees. There's a cue. When we talk about instrumental hooks, that is one. Somebody said that's 20 seconds. How do you submit that as a cue? By looping it. And after you do 4 bars or 8 bars of one complement of instruments, the next time it repeats, add other instruments to make it sound bigger. And then the next time it repeats, add a few more instruments, or 1 or 2 more instruments, and make it even bigger. And then boom, cut it, give it an edit point, and then shoop, bring it back down. That's the official sound for bringing it down. Shoop. Okay? So it's not that hard to wrap your head around it, except we've all been trained with, the intro, verse, chorus, bridge, chorus, and out thing for so long. But in the land of cues, they're so used to, and they want just the A section. They really do. Sometimes it's an A and a B section. Maybe I'll hear one in here that'll be a good example of it. But you get the idea, right? It's becoming pretty apparent, I think. Let's listen to a little bit more of this and then move on to another one because I've got to pick up some time. Listen to the guitar part doing the melody. It's just following the chords, but there's a breakdown. This thing is just filled with great edit points. So I think it's a great example of what could be a cue. Believe me, there's not a library out there and not a supervisor out there, right kind of supervisor for the right show. I mean, this may or may not work for a feature film. It may or may not work for a reality show. May not work for a drama, but it's going to work for something. And they do want hip, contemporary stuff. These are great examples. Amber Dane says, I have great hair. Thanks, Amber. That's why I do the show, so I can show off my great hair. All right, moving on. Somebody said earlier, they asked if one of the bands, I think Neon Trees, weren't they a Taxi featured band? Not to my knowledge. I wish they had been, but this next band was, and they are called Donora. And I think this song or one of their others, we pushed these guys for so long. Love this band. Great people in the band, and I think that this song that I'm going to play was in a TV commercial not long ago. I'm pretty sure you'll recognize it. Okay, right off the bat, it comes in, it's fully, I was going to say germinated. That's not the word I was looking for, but it's there. There's enough there that it's a cue already, and that little riff, there you go. That is a melodic hook. It's interesting, but it's not something that would distract from dialogue. And just that much of the song is absolutely the kind of thing, again, not recommending that you rip anybody off, not suggesting that, but think in terms of these elements, that little riff. The song is called I Think I Like You. So what's in there? We hear the bass, very simple drums like kicking a snare. Sounds like the bell of a cymbal. I love that song, and that song in particular is just like so incredibly perfect for TV commercials. You could use that for fashion retail. You could use it for, I don't know, sody pop. You could use it for just all kinds of stuff. Could be used in a film. You know, two people fall in love, and it's a lighthearted date night, falling in love kind of movie. I think I like you. Perfect. Um, okay, one more song. This is also from the band Donora, and this one is called Boom Boom. Anthemic. Could be Lala's. Couple people have commented. I agree with you. The vocals are way down in the mix. This thing is all about the rhythm, for me anyway. So I can't say that I love that as much as I think I like you, but rhythmic stuff. um, Songs with claps, songs with muted guitar strings doing cool little rhythms. Anything that makes something want to tap your foot, that sends a message. It's emotionally upbeat, makes you feel good. That's what they want. Certainly for commercials, and oftentimes in TV shows. Okay, moving on. This one you will instantly recognize as Imagine Dragons. This is On Top of the World, which has been synced probably more times than we could count. Here we go. Speaking of rhythmic, little hand jive. Okay, just that much. Just that much of it. That's a cue. Do that and loop the hell out of it. Make it 2.5 minutes long. By the way, I was having lunch on Saturday. I didn't go flying my RC plane on Saturday. Instead, I went to lunch with a music library owner, and we were talking about ideal cue length. And he says he prefers 2.5 minutes. So we get everything. We sometimes get libraries that'll ask us for 30-second cues, and we go, really? 30 seconds? I don't think editors want 30 seconds. I think they want at least a minute. We always recommend 2 minutes. This guy says, give him 2.5. It's easier to make it shorter than it is longer. So I'm going to go back and play that little intro section again, and just imagine taking that and looping it for 2.5 minutes, but with every 4 bars adding and subtracting other instruments. And notice, by the way, that the melody it's there and it's usable.
it in, but don't look down. 'Cause I'm on top of the world, eh? I'm on top of the world, eh? Been waiting on this for a while now. Paying my dues to the dirt. I've been waiting to stop.
Imagine the vocals without lyrics, just doing la la la, hey, la 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 la, hey.
Now hold me in for a while, eh? Take me with me if I can. Been dreaming of this since a child. I'm on top of the world. I've tried to cut these corners, tried to take the easy way out. I kept on falling short of something. I could have gave up there, but then again I couldn't have. 'Cause I've traveled all this way for something. I take it in, but don't look down. 'Cause I'm on top of the world, eh? I'm on top of the world, eh? Been waiting on this for a while now. Paying my dues to the dirt. I've been waiting to smile, eh? Now hold it in for a while, eh? Take me with me if I can. Been dreaming of this since a child. I'm on top of the world.
Okay, now imagine if you did do a whole song and then did cut downs of the whole song and looped the sections and added the non-lyrical vocal parts. There's so much you could do with this that is all potentially income producing. I want to get you guys thinking about that stuff. You can do stuff that's musically creative and fun that you enjoy doing, that sounds hip and modern and does fit within what the industry needs without being a sellout. You can have fun doing this stuff. That song is fun. All right, this one is You Are a Tourist, and it's from Death Cab for Cutie. Yeah, Dispatch has been having a ton of queue listings. Call the staff if you want to get off the Dispatch list, Jim. It's a little more sophisticated, not so happy. Another great example of a very hooky little melodic part. You don't need vocals for this. Listen to the bass part.
Cause you think it all the time. Framing rights and wrongs.
Notice it.
Move along when there's a doubt within your mind. When there's a burning in your heart. Then you think it'll burst apart. Oh, there's nothing to fear. Save the tears, save the tears when there's a burning in your heart. And if you feel just like a tourist in the city you were born, then it's time to go and define your destination. There's so
Somebody just asked, G Music just asked, is it good to write the bass line first? I don't know. I'm a traditional kind of guy. I grew up in the industry where they taught you, figure out the bass and drums and then build everything else around that. But I don't know, as a writer so much as a producer and engineer, I tend to think that way. But, bottom end, it's important. And you may not want to start with something that's really busy on the bottom end. I would tend to recommend going with something that just coordinates with the kick drum, and gives it a nice tight bottom end. And then after you come up with what the melodic hook is, then do you have any space that needs to be filled? You may not. And remember, just because you can doesn't mean you should. But maybe, adding something on a higher register with the bass might fill part of the sonic spectrum that you want to fill. But again, people have been commenting throughout all these songs. They're simple and they're catchy. Yes, thank you. Simple and catchy. Simple and catchy. All right. Now let's listen. You'll recognize this one, I think. It's called It's All Right by Matt and Kim. Simple, catchy, rhythmic. Still on the same section throughout this whole song so far. 45 seconds in. The same figure over and over. Same figure, but bigger. Sometimes cheesy samples work. Yeah, the screeners will tell you if you're doing a legit orchestral piece and you were to use horns that sounded like that, they would tell you that your sample sucked. But here, sounds very appropriate because it's the context. You always have to be aware of the context. All right, let's listen to Daylight by Matt and Kim. Recognize this? Matt and Kim. The song is called Daylight. Same figure throughout. And you you guys are picking up on the fact that it is about the rhythm and the simplicity. And Stephen Giles just said it's all about the beat, in my humble opinion. Absolutely. So you know what? Don't rip off any of these songs. Don't try and make something that sounds just like them. But you could take an acoustic guitar and take your right hand, mute the strings with your left hand, and sit there for 15 minutes getting the groove with your right hand. And just lay that down, and then make a loop out of that. And then add a big, poofy, roomy kick drum to it. And then take some sort of weird, innovative snare sound. Not just a snare sound that's right out of the box, but a snare sound that, sounds like it's from across the room with a shotgun mic with wax paper laying over it or something. Do cool stuff. Nobody wants the same old thing, but use the rhythmic aspect of what we're playing today and the simplistic aspect of the melodies and the catchiness of the melodies, and then the structure of a cue, which is short to no intro, A section, A section, A section, easy edits, layering the instruments to make it build and come back down dynamically. There you go. Okay, I'll play a little bit more of this. Listen to the snare doing a little shuffle. Almost a little hip hop shuffle going on. All right, you get the idea. Let's move on to a song called Youngblood. I still haven't hit the one that I thought earlier today. Man, maybe I should take that out. This could be it. The Naked and Famous. This is called Youngblood. Nope, this wasn't the one I wanted to take out. Not my birthday today. It's coming up though. Again, this is a great cue. Try and imagine what kind of scene this would work for. Talk about a melody. Wow. The Naked and Famous. Gated snare. This is the only tight sounding kick drum we've heard yet so far today. Yep, unison vocals. Just imagine you had 2.5 minutes of that, what you could layer on top of it. Doesn't get any more simple. All right, you get the idea. I'm I'm at a loss. It seems so obvious to me, so incredibly obvious. Watch this show again from the top to the bottom, and sit down in your studio and just pick one that resonates for you and go, okay, what can I learn rhythmically from this? Figure it out rhythmically, and then turn the song off and come up, spend an hour and find some great little melodic hook. Really simple, 4, 5, 6 notes. You don't need to write an opus. You don't need to show anybody what a genius you are. It's all about being simple and catchy. All right, now moving on to Group Love. This is a song called Tongue Tied. We've all heard this. Lots of commercials. Listen to the melodic hook. All right. There's no reason to play more of it, but it's awesome. I love that band, love that song. You get the idea. All right, moving on. This is Two Door Cinema Club, and this is a song called Do You Want It All? Yeah, there we go. Another tight kick drum. This is Two Door Cinema Club. Its song is called Do You Want It All? I like that. I don't know why I picked it for this show. I mean, it's obvious that it's rhythmic and it's catchy and it's super repetitive to the point of almost being sickening. But for whatever reason at the time, I thought it was a good idea. Not a terrible idea. Maybe I've had better ideas. All right. And this next one I think is probably not 100% appropriate for the show, but I love this song and I love the band. It's Fitz and the Tantrums. Tantrum, and the song is Money Grabber, and I don't remember why I picked it for the show. Maybe I was wrong. Let's find out. Oh yeah, just this part. Imagine this being a cue. No lyric yet. Very Hall & Oates. This part's not so cue friendly. Baritone sax, gotta love that. An instrumental of this section with the sax, woo, maybe a Barry sax so it doesn't step on dialogue. Unisons. All right, I don't know that I was in thinking clearly when I picked that for a show about cues, but man, do I love that song, and I think I would probably sleep with a baritone sax on a first date. Yeah, I just can't hear enough baritone sax. Love it, love it, love it, love it. Yeah, if you're not familiar with Fitz and the Tantrum, get familiar. And do what somebody mentioned Daryl's house. Daryl Hall from Hall & Oates. Has a really cool studio on his property at his house, and he does a show that's on YouTube called Daryl's House. And there's an episode where he's got Fitz and just like all these incredible musicians doing some Hall & Oates stuff, doing some Fitz stuff, and man, that's like Friday night. Make the popcorn, sit on the couch, put it up on the big screen, and watch that show. It's amazing. All right, this one is called Some Nights, and the band is Fun with a period. If you guys think you see typos in our listings with the word fun with a period in the oddest of places, it's not a typo. It's the way the band spells their name.
Some nights I stay up, cashing in my bad luck. Some nights I call it a draw. Some nights I wish that my lips could build a castle. Some nights I wish they just fall off. But I still wake up, I still see your ghost. Oh Lord, I'm still not sure what I stand for. Oh, what do I stand for? What do I stand for? Most nights I don't know anymore.
Rhythmic. Do you hear that? I mean, it's so perfect. not my birthday, Bob.
This is it, boys. This is war. What are we waiting for? Why don't we break the rules already?
Almost Celtic.
Go on to believe the hype. Sing out for the black and white. Try twice as hard in a map is like good. Here they come again, the jackmaster. That's alright. I found a martyr in my bed tonight. Stops my bones from wandering. Just why, am oh my. Well, some nights I wish that this all would end. 'Cause I could use some friends for a change. And some nights I'm scared you'll forget me again. Some nights I always win. But I still wake up, I still see your ghost. But Lord, I'm still not sure what I stand for. What do I stand for? What do I stand for? Most nights I don't know.
Just take the drums. If you had a cue that was nothing but a drum pattern like this, with a muted acoustic guitar, maybe a muted electric guitar, and then a simple, catchy little melody, maybe something like a toy piano, maybe some other weird little instrument, threw that over. What about a bagpipe sample going through an echoplex? How's that?
I sold my soul for this. Wash my hands without for this. I miss my mom and dad for this. No. When I see stars, that's all they are. When I hear songs, they sound like this one. So come on. Well, toxic guys, daddy's on. Want me to sit in a void.
Just hear the drums. What if you took these drums and had a Barry Sachs doing, some sort of little accents?
And then I look into my nephew's eyes. Man, you wouldn't believe the most amazing things that can come from some terrible lie.
Same rhythm, but totally different. All right, and I think it was Mojo that brought this up, which I might have mentioned at the top of the show. If I didn't, I was remiss. There is a common theme among almost everything that I've played for you today, which was when I first started putting together this playlist, it was going to be about that. Mojo picked it out, anthemic. When you see that word in listings, almost every one of these songs today has an anthemic feel. You just want to raise your hands and be part of this group of people, stand on a mountaintop and sing I'd like to buy the world a Coke. So anthemic, that's what it means. It doesn't literally mean the Star-Spangled Banner. It might give you a sense of I'm part of a large group and we're proud about something, and it makes the hair on my arm stand up. It makes my heart beat a little faster. All those things are a result of the emotion that an anthemic song makes you feel. All right? Okay. One more. And this is called After Hours by We Are Scientists. Here we go. Very average sounding drums. Listen to the guitar part. By the way, notice the interplay between the bass and the guitar in this. They had to work hard to make these two not collide and work that well together. Excuse me. All right. Not exactly in the ballpark of all the other songs, but it is indie rock, and it does have an anthemic quality. It's just different than all the other stuff, and it would work. Um, anyone know if Michael's done a show on the taxi listing definitions? Perhaps I'm not good enough yet, but they seem hard to understand. I don't really know what you mean by the taxi listing definitions. Do you mean the genres? We work really, really hard. You'd be shocked to know how hard we work to make those listings make sense. So, yeah, frankly, I look at some listings out there from some taxi wannabes, and they'll run a listing that says, looking for happy songs. Could be rock, could be pop, could be hip hop, could be country, anything that's happy. And we know that that's a BS listing, not 100% of the time, but often. And they know that it's going to bring in a lot of submissions because it's extremely general. Everybody thinks they've got a happy song, and it's in any genre. Come on, supervisors aren't looking for just give me something happy in any genre. That's a pretty rare occurrence. Um, all right, there you go. Any questions before we wrap this sucker up? The lingo. I don't know what to tell you, Jim. The lingo, it's the lexicon of the industry. We don't make the lingo up. It's we. As a matter of fact, we try to take the lingo, the lexicon of the industry, and try and make it so it makes sense to people who aren't living in LA and don't do cues for a living, or don't live in Nashville and don't do country music on Music Row every day. We really try hard to make our stuff accessible for everybody. Um, so I'm kind of bummed because I know that you pay attention, and you're a smart guy. I don't want to tell you when my birthday is. That's too much information. Because people use stuff like that. I'm a fairly public figure, and I don't want. I've got enough people that know too much stuff about me. I don't think I need to give out my birthday. Um, but thanks for caring. I do appreciate that. Um, is it okay and current to double vocals? I heard it earlier on the show. It depends on the song and the context. Um, I mean, the classic old doubling of vocals because one vocal pass didn't sound good enough and maybe the artist was a little pitchy, that's kind of passe now. If you're doubling the vocal for effect, that's not passe. Certainly doubling, tripling, quadrupling background vocals. I believe there's a point of diminishing returns when you start if you've got four people singing background vocals, especially when it's harmony, it's maybe a different animal if you're all doing group unisons. But if you're doing harmonies and you double them and then triple them and then quadruple them, it gets out of hand, and there is a point of diminishing returns, I believe. Queen did it very effectively. Roy Thomas Baker was their engineer producer, and I've actually been a student of how he did that, but I don't want to take a half an hour and explain it. I will tell you that he used to tweak his tape machine back when tape machines required you to set the bias. Roy Thomas Baker used white noise at very loud levels. I actually worked in the room. He built a studio in Boston for the Cars. It was called Synchro Sound. And back in the day, when I engineered and produced some stuff for Shirelli, that half of what we did was done in that room. And watching how they set up their tape machine and bias it was a trip. Um, Oh, you're welcome, Juliet. I love doing these shows, obviously. Yes, read Robin Frederick's books to learn the lingo. I mean, frankly, we hope that you learn the lingo by reading the listings. And don't just read the listings for the stuff that you do, read all the listings. I'm telling you, we would have so many more members that could be successful if they took the time to really read through all the listings because there's so much that gets missed. We had a listing the other day. It was for like a really choice placement. Um, and we got 38 submissions for it. It's like, why didn't anybody notice that listing? Waddy JP, you recorded at Synchro Sound? Cool. Remember, it had the upstairs control room, like an upstairs downstairs situation. One of the worst sounding studios that I've ever worked in, by the way. They had an MCI 600 series console, which had been heavily tweaked, but or retrofitted. But man, the preamps in that thing sounded like piss. The EQ sounded even worse. I don't think Roy Thomas Baker actually used it for anything other than the faders. I think that he went straight into the tape machine as often as he could, or used outboard mic pre's right into the tape machine. But yeah, that room just, it was horrible. Not simulsync, synchro sound. Um, wow, M. Collins recorded an album at Synchro Sound. Is it just me, or did that place sound really bad? Sorry to the owners of Synchro Sound. Um, the reverb was in the basement. All right. No questions at this point. We're just talking about stuff. So I'm going to let you guys hang out and talk. I'm going to sign off. I've got some stuff I've got to do. Thank you for watching. Please watch this show again from top to bottom. I know that's asking a lot, but I really, really, really want you guys to learn this stuff. So if you don't know it already, this is what music today sounds like. This is what, not entirely what the industry is looking for. Many great examples today of the kind of stuff that if I were a multi-instrumentalist with a home studio and trying to figure out what kind of cues had the highest probability of getting picked up by libraries and used across a wide swath of applications, this is what I would be doing. Thank you all for watching. Thanks for paying attention. We won't see you next week because it is going to be Labor Day in the United States. Monday is a holiday here. So we will see you 2 weeks from today, okay? Oh, I can't remember if I announced this already. I haven't done it in writing yet. I'm late getting it out. But our honoree, our Lifetime Achievement Award winner and keynote interview for this year's Road Rally is Maureen Crow. I'm looking around to see if I have a picture of her. I don't. Maureen Crow, legendary music supervisor Maureen Crow, and up until a few days ago, she was the founding CEO of the Guild of Music Supervisors. The woman is brilliant, and I just am so excited to interview her on stage. You will learn, seriously, if all you came to the Road Rally for was the Maureen Crow interview, whatever your plane flight cost you, it would be well worth it. So there you go. See you guys. I enjoyed doing the show. Hope you enjoyed watching it, and we will see you in 2 weeks for another exciting episode of Taxi TV Live. Bye-bye.